Hail, intrepid viewers, and welcome back! Today we're playing the demo for the Falconers Moonlight. This is a visual novel currently on Steam Greenlight, and let me read the description from their website. 80 people, either dead or missing, rumors of monsters that stalk their human prey in the mist-clad forest. Moonlight is a gold mining town in trouble, and only the Falconers can help. The Falconer's Moonlight is a supernatural thriller visual novel set in the 19th century west coast of New Zealand. Falconer Cassandra Winter is on her first solo mission. Can she save the people of Moonlight from their plight? Or will she disappear into the mist, like so many others before her? Let's see. I have not played this before at all, so I don't know how this ends. This is a work of fiction. Names, characters, businesses, places, events, and incidents are either the products of the author's imagination or used in fictitious manner. Any resemblance to actual persons living or dead or actual events is purely coincidental. I believe you. I'll trust you on this one, video game. I thought she was bleeding in her head for a second, but that is just a shadow. It's a pretty looking tree. I like the moss on it. Her red-rimmed eyes watched him walk away. It's a good first sentence. It's a loaded sentence. Her shivering hands unfolded the chisel from its hiding place in her dress. Her lips drew back from teeth that were strong, yet crooked in the front and stained a light yellow from the tobacco she pilfered each day from her father's tin. Father had told her never to give up. He loved tobacco addiction, her father. Never to let anyone treat her like dirt. Never to take no for an answer. Ugh, never. She gripped the chisel tightly in her hand and took a trembling step towards the path. The glint of the chisel blade served to calm her, to light her way. I did not know. Chisel blades were sources of light. She took another step forward, this one more steady, more ready than the first. Better to have loved and lost than to never have loved at all. She'd teach this man, this so-called lover, the true meaning of love and loss. She launched forward, about to break into a run. Her boot never touched the ground. It burst from the forest faster than her fevered mind could even register. It took her in its great arms, barbs like sharpened bone tearing through her dress, sinking into her flesh. Well, so far, this so-called monster seems to have prevented a murder. I'd say it's the hero of this story. It carried her off into the mist before she could even scream. Efficient, too. I like the way you work, monster. We should get together, create some sort of deal. Moonlight. A town grown too used to mourning those it has lost. 65 men destined to die in a pitch-black hole deep underground. Their bodies dragged up from the earth just so they can be put right back in it again. As a falconer, I suppose I should be used to death. It's my tool and my trade. I just go through hawks like water. No respect for their lives, I just expend them. I deal it out so that others might escape its claws. This world we live in, it's not so hospitable, not so tamed as we like to think. These towns, just like Moonlight, they try to look like they belong. These people, they think building a house is the same as making a home. Oh, it's not like that sentence. I'm 14 and steep. Actually, no, I like it. They don't know whose home they have stolen. Until the Colors come for them. Also a good name for an adversary. The Colors. They're gonna cull everybody. I left the mourners to shovel the dirt over their dearly departed. I rode through Moonlight on streets of freshly turned mud. The buildings had all been cut and sawn from the virgin forest that surrounded this town on all sides. This place was once lush, wet green as far as the eye could see. Gold has a habit of changing all of that. The Moonlight Hotel was just ahead, its warm innards holding the promise of a bath, a hot meal, and a respite from the bone-chilling mist. As I drew close, I thought about my mission here. About the disappearance that Captain George Moonlight spoke of in his letter to the Order of the Falcon. About a mining accident that killed 65 men. If those two things weren't connected, then I am not a falconer. Yes, coincidences exist, but they're far more rare than people tend to believe. Hi! The proprietor of the Moonlight Hotel, Mary Suncliffe, greeted me at the door. Her bright smile clashed mightily with the black dress she wore out of respect for the town's recent tragedy. One of these characters. I may attempt to do a New Zealand accent. Welcome to the Moonlight Hotel, Miss Winter. Yeah, I can't do it though, I'm terrible. So we'll try on a character who's easier and probably has less lines. Welcome to the Moonlight Hotel, Miss Winter. Everyone will be English, as always. Call me Cassie. And you're Mary Suncliffe, I'm guessing. Please call me Sunlight, most people around here do. On account of your sunny disposition. Her smile grew just that a little bit wider. She sure did have pretty teeth. Ugh, that's creepy. Not something to be taken for granted in a backcountry mining town like this. The staff are drawing a bath for you right now, and dinner's in the bar in an hour. Thank you kindly. Thank you kindly. Should I make her a super, like, cowboy? My pleasure. Oh, and the wake will start about then too. The wake? Most of the miners, the ones lost in the accident, were Irish, a few Scots, so maybe they wouldn't have New Zealand accents anyway. It's tradition for them to drink hard and toast those that have passed. So what you're saying is, if I want to get any sensible answers out of these people tonight, I should aim for between rounds 3 and 5, right? My thoughts exactly. I like the cut of your jib, sunshine, sunlight, sunny D. Mary Suncliffe lived up to her nickname. Well, she certainly brightened my day. One purifying bath and delicious meal later, I found myself with a pint of the local miner's dark in my hand and a bar full of townsfolk to question. Most people don't know about the colors, and those that do tend to wish they didn't. But there's a lot of Falconer can learn from what people think they can tell you, and what they think they've seen and heard, and most of all, what they really don't want to tell you. Poof! Look at that guy, I'm suspicious of him, he's a ghost! That guy's friggin', he's a color if I've ever seen one. Look at that friggin' goatee on his face. His boots, they're so tall. Everything fits him so well. He's the bad guy. He is the bad guy. I spotted the captain. Oh, okay, so he's my superior. Over by the bar, the wealthiest man in this namesake town of his. He's the captain of the town, is that right? I need to be talking to him about this letter to the Falconers soon enough, yet perhaps there were others he had to talk to first. Sorry. Investigations are colored by the wants and needs of the people affected, and you can't paint a full picture in just one shade. I beg to differ. I caught Sunlight's eye, and she fixed me with that blinding smile of hers. Another brew, Cassie? Nope, some advice. Regarding? Who here hath the sharpest eyes and the biggest mouth? Sharpest eyes? Where-a-moo Whack-a Jones. The biggest mouth, that belonged to Biddy Goodwin. So many questions to ask, and I had to start somewhere. Our options are Biddy, Welka, introduce myself to both of Whecka and Biddy at the same time. How about I learn more before talking to anybody? Learn more about Whack-a Jones. He's a gambler, a good one, doesn't miss a trick at the table or anywhere else that I've noticed. Is he a local Maori? Maori? I can say words. Not these words, though. The Nigatahu tribe. No, he doesn't talk much about it, but I gather he's from the North Island somewhere. Then he's a long way from home. The North Island not being Australia? It's not really an island. Learn more about Biddy Goodwin. Biddy was one of the first miners to strike gold here before the good captain arrived and gave it a name. She obviously doesn't like to show off her wealth. I'm not one to presume the business of others, but if she made much of anything out of those early days, she hides it well. Enough to afford a bottle of whiskey or two, though. Per day. Really? I own a pub, Miss Winter. I tend to notice things like that. Oh, let's do Captain later. Hello, Whacker. So that'd be Big Mouth giving Sharp Eyes an earful in the corner there. Yes, now's probably a good time to start your questioning before Weka ends up with one of Biddy's bullets in him. Oh, it's not a goatee, it's some cool tattoos. Not a big fan of mouth tattoos in general, but that guy's pulling it off, I think. Kill two birds with one stone, eh? You get some answers and I don't have to get my mop and bucket out. On my way. Much obliged. I sidled over to Weka and Biddy just in time too, as their argument seemed about ready to boil over into something uglier. Biddy.
You and Maggie goes into the bush, only you comes back mighty bloody suspicious if you ask me, Weka.
That's an old woman voice? I don't know. No one asked you, Biddy. He's the gruff, kind of, Spike Spiegel kind of thing.
Maggie would if she was here. So where is she?
I don't know.
Better at counting cars than corpses, eh, gambler?
That's enough.
Enough? How many folks you gotta vanish into the mist before it's really enough?
Biddy's hand crept down to the rusted revolver on her belt. Politely distract Biddy. I figured it was time to intercede. Biddy Goodwin. Biddy glared at me with a face like one of those old potatoes left too long in the bottom of the sack, the eyes even matched. Don't think I'd ever seen eyes so dark and full of spite.
Who's asking?
Poof, he's gone. Weka made the most of the distraction and beat a hasty retreat. I'd need to talk to him at some point, but I didn't think I'd get a straight answer out of Biddy while the gambler was still in range of that antique shooter of hers. Cassandra Winter. The one been hired to get to the bottom of these disappearances.
Oh yeah, who hired you?
Captain Moonlight. Biddy laughed up some phlegm and spat it onto the carpet, just shy of my boots.
Then you're burning the cheating old bastard's cash. The gobshite responsible just scarping out that door.
Why do you think it's Weka?
Didn't nobody disappear until Weka rode into town all fancy on his black horse. Saw him go into the bush with Maggie Matthews with my own eyes.
She finished her statement with a healthy pull from her whiskey bottle. Southern sauce, read the label. I'd heard of the stuff, smooth as honey and hard as a horse kick between the eyes. Brewed from some Highland bootleggers in the deep south. Buy some. How Biddy was getting hold of the stuff was anybody's guess. When was that?
Last night, just on sunset.
Had you been drinking?
No more than usual.
Maggie's not been seen since?
That's right, Weka's done for her, that's what.
What about the others that have gone missing? You saw any of them go into the bush with Weka? I didn't think it was possible, but Biddy's face grew even more wrinkles as it puckered up in thought. Looked like another spit was brewing, one bitter with the answer she'd turned up in that whiskey-soaked brain of hers. Biddy Goodwin, you spit on my carpet again, I'll be spitting you out into the street. Biddy glowered at sunlight, but refrained from expectorating all the same.
Nope, I've not seen anyone else go into the bush with Weka. Doesn't mean it hasn't happened, mind you.
Judging by his attire, I doubt Weka ventures into the bush much at all. Would I be wrong there?
Suppose not.
It didn't feel like Biddy would tell me the whole story here, but how was I going to get more of the truth out of her? I'm not gonna put pressure on her, she seems rather cantankerous. We'll keep her calm. You seem like one who keeps track of the comings and goings in this town, Miss Goodwin.
Do I now?
I think so. And perhaps you saw someone else head out into the bush around the same time as Weka and Maggie. Perhaps a little before.
Do you think if I had seen anyone else I'd be pointing blue bloody murder at Weka?
So you saw no one, before or after?
Not a soul. Heard something, though. No, that's not right. I didn't hear something, that's what.
It seemed whiskey was finally taking its toll on Biddy's brain. Did you hear something or not?
Keep your fancy blonde locks on, Falconer, I'm getting to it. Fact is, I didn't hear the birds that evening. No tui nor bellbird, no wood pigeons flapping about with that whooshing sound they make, nothing.
The New Zealand bush was usually a riot of bird song in the evening, so that likely meant one thing. There'd been a caller about. Thank you, Miss Goodwin. And if you don't mind, you and I should speak again soon.
I ain't going nowhere. And don't call me Miss Goodwin. We're not in church, Falconer. Biddy will do fine.
All right. While we're on the topic of names, I prefer Cassie. She gave me a wary smile, and I took a long pull from her bottle. And she took a long pull from her bottle. As she drank, her eyes switched from me to the bar and grew a shade darker. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught the finely tailored jacket, neatly trimmed dark beard, slick black hair, and gleaming black boots. Seemed that Biddy had a bit of a hate on with regards to Captain Moonlight. Poof! He's there again, ghost man. Miss Winter. At that point, Biddy clearly decided it was time for parting shots and a dramatic exit. She fixed Captain Moonlight with a sinister squint and pointed at him with a pudgy digit.
Oi, King George, when are you planning to get off my land?
My land? You sold it fair and square. George's response was a chuckle of warm, well-practiced patience.
Yeah, like the bullets I'm gonna put square between those cheating eyes of yours.
Careful now, Biddy, that sort of talk will earn you a night in the gaol. At least Biddy had the good sense to shut her mouth from that point on. Poof! She's gone too. This town is crazy. Instead, she muttered something about King George and some unseemly carnal acts not worth repeating, and she stalked towards the door. And good night to you, Biddy. Please don't try to leave town. The wizened miner tipped her bottle, a mocking version of a salute, and then she was gone. My apologies, Miss Winter. Biddy's not one of our more peace-loving citizens. Can't say I have all that much time for peace myself. I can try and keep it, but it never seems to want to stay. And such is the life of a falconer, I suppose. I'll drink to that. We talked for some time, George Moonlight and I, going over the finer details of his contract with the Order of the Falcon. Should the cause of disappearances transpire to be human in origin, a sizable donation would be made to the Order of the Falcon in thanks for re-establishing civil rest in the town of Moonlight. Should it come to light that the town's troubles to be color in nature, then an even larger sum would be donated to the Order in return for hunting down and dispatching said colors. So, I don't understand. Who knows what colors are? Does everybody know what they are and some people just don't believe in them? Like, the captain seems to believe in them and know that they are a factual thing, but the earlier paragraph indicated to me that only the Falconers believed in them. I'm gonna assume that people know what they are. It's not like people don't know. People think they're fantasies, not that nobody knows what they are. I'm gonna go with that one. The fancy one. A pretty standard contract, really. I had seen its like many times before on many a prior mission, although in all honesty this was the first one I'd signed for myself. My first solo mission. Not something I divulged to Captain Moonlight. Thought it might shake his confidence in me. Didn't wish to mention it again at all, not even in my own head, in case it shook my own confidence. ... Since George was buying, I sank a few more pints before taking myself off to bed. Mostly to ease the aches of the road, but a little to loosen the knot of fear in my belly. Back into the bar? The next morning brought more mist. Sunlight's famous wild bacon and egg pie, and a decision to make. Why am I so yawny? Low on oxygen must be. I'm gonna have to Weka first, because I haven't really talked to him much at all. I wasn't buying Biddy's accusations of serial murder, but Maggie Matthews still hadn't turned up, and Weka was the last person to see her. One interesting thing would have been if the prologue to this game hadn't occurred, because I'm pretty sure that seems to explicitly show you a color murdering a girl, right? I think that it might have been more interesting, hard to say without finishing the game, it might have been more interesting if it was ambiguous, if we didn't know whether or not it was Weka at this point. I don't know, food for thought I suppose. I hope the little heart-to-heart with Weka would provide some useful insights. A tete-a-tete instead is more my cup of tea, I think. I found Weka dicing for gold dust with a pair of Chinese miners. Fleecing children. I watched them for a little while from across the street, focusing on those dice as they tumbled across the porch boards of Flynn's General Store. By the 6th roll, I'd become damn sure that those dice were loaded. Now, I could have either pointed this fact out and saved those miners some hard-earned gold, or held my tongue and let events take their natural course. I could prove he's a cheat, to let him know that I'm legit and not one to be taken lightly or fooled, or I could let him practice his craft and not provoke his ire. I'll let Weka practice his craft. Weka called Snake Eyes and made his final roll. They came to rest, and true to Weka's word, a pair of ones glared up at the miners in insolent triumph. The two men cursed in Chinese, threw down their pouches of dust, and stalked off in the direction of the Moonlight Hotel, no doubt hoping to drown their sorrows with whatever gold they had left to them. Weka flashed me an amused smile as he scooped up his winnings. I had seen how the dice had rolled, noted their ungainly tumble. Yes, I knew loaded dice when I saw them. Begging your pardon, Miss Winter, but shouldn't you be out hunting for lost folk? Such as one Maggie Matthews. I don't know where she is. I didn't say you did, Mr. Jones. Then what are you saying? I'm not. I'm asking. Why did the two of you part ways at Giggling Glade? The question caught him off guard, as intended. Do you make a habit of prying into the personal matters of innocent gentlemen? Yes. So was she not as sweet on you as you'd hoped? Your little bush liaison not go as planned? Quite the opposite. You can spare me the sticky details, just the facts, please. She threw herself at me and I gracefully declined her affections. That sort of thing happened to you often, Mr. Jones. Please, call me Weremoo. Wiremoo? Wiremoo? Wiremoo. Cassie. Whoa, we're getting a little close. Bad touch. We shook hands and performed what the Maori call a hongi. Okay, fine. Cool touch, I guess. You changed it on me. Good job. A traditional pressing of noses and respectful greeting. Apparently, it's about sharing the breath of life together. And I had to admit, I could see why the ladies fancied this Wiremoo Jones. Well presented, well-mannered, and with eyes like rich, dark chocolate. Oh, yeah. Yes, unfortunately so. And I make a point of never taking advantage. It's the way my mother raised me. My mother taught me to shoot any man that looked at me funny. They both had the counsel of a wise woman. Guess so. But let's spare a thought for Maggie's mother now, shall we? Alright, Maggie took my rejection rather badly. Unrequited love, it's not an easy thing to bear. Unrequited and requited? I've never heard to pronounce that word. She threatened to tell the town that I had taken her by force. Oh. You can imagine how that would have gone, the word of a Maori man against that of a Pakeha woman, the daughter of a respected carpenter. You'd have been hanging from a tree by sunset. Exactly. I have to admit, though, Wiramu, that's a pretty good motive for murder. Most folks around here would agree with you, which is why I was in the process of hustling up some funds for a hasty departure from town. Looks like you'll just have to stay and prove your innocence then, Wiramu. Is that your way of saying if they try to leave town, I'll shoot you? You're a smart man. Explains why I'm still alive. I should have made him talk like Rhys Darby. Explains why I'm still alive! With that, he strolled off down the street, swinging his cane and whistling, just a cheerful gentleman taking his morning constitutional. ... Though the sun was weak in the grey sky, there was just enough warmth to have lifted the mist off the bush a little. I had enough time to pay Biddy Goodwin a visit before I'd have to venture out into the damp forest to discover the fate of Maggie Matthews for myself. You! I found Biddy taking her first slug of liquor breakfast from her whiskey bottle. It seemed Biddy was a believer in the hair of the dog cure for hangovers. Essentially, in order to prevent hangovers, just don't stop drinking.
You shot Weka yet?
Nope, and you're not going to either.
Why's that?
Apart from you getting hung for it?
Yep, already thought of that. Doing neck exercises twice a day.
Alright, then how about innocent until proven guilty? Biddy cackled into her bottle. Whoa, zoomin'!
Ain't the way life works, not in my experience.
That's why you spend your time picking fights, is it?
Someone's gotta keep the bastards of this world honest.
I knew exactly who that comment was aimed at. Here was my chance to find out more about this feud between Biddy and George. Then again, people were dying, and more might die if I didn't find my colors, and fast. The mining accident was looming large in this investigation. George. Bastards like Captain Moonlight, what's your beef with him? She pointed down the street at a primitive construction of stone, rusting iron, and rotting timber that served as her as a house.
That's all I got now. King George took the rest for that bloody mine of his.
He's of the opinion that you sold it to him.
Yeah, I signed a piece of paper what said my land weren't nothing more than a clay and rock. Not worth farming, not worth digging up for gold either.
The same land that now holds the biggest and richest gold mine in the area. Why did you take his word for it?
I didn't. Government surveyor did.
You think George paid the surveyor off?
Sure as shit as on a sheep's arse he did.
If it was true, then Biddy had a genuine bone to pick with King George. I'm going to ask you this straight, Biddy, so don't go getting all offended and trying for that rusty antique of yours.
Ask me what, Falconer?
Did you have anything to do with the accident? Biddy's face took on the puckered look of a rotten apple, and her mouth started working side to side like she was preparing a nice, juicy spit for my face. I'm sensing a pattern here. But then the moment passed, her face softened, and she simply took another sip of her whiskey. At her whiskey. At her? Does that mean she could have missed?
I lost a lot of friends in that blast.
I know, I'm sorry.
Not half as sorry as them. And it weren't no accident.
No?
Not with Jimmy Corbett in charge of those explosives. Didn't talk much, did Jimmy? Too busy worrying about his dynamite, about gas pockets, about lighted matches in wrong places. Jimmy Worry, the others all called him. And with Jimmy Worry down that mine, nobody else need bother with it.
Could Jimmy have made a mistake?
Could I go a day without a drink?
I took that as a no, thanked Biddy for her time, and thought about Jimmy Worry as I followed the nearest path headed for the bush. When an accident that kills 65 men turns out not to be an accident, 9 times out of 10 there's a color behind it. The Falconers spent a few hundred years working that one out. Into the bush. I followed the narrow trail through the damp forest, the mist still concealing much that should have been in view at this time of day. It made me wonder if the colors were having something to do with it. They could bend nature to their wicked will, even the weather sometimes, so Little Miss is probably well within their capabilities. Had I known the job involved being constantly wet and clammy, I'm not sure I would have signed up to be a falconer in the first place. But I suppose it's a small sacrifice for saving the world. Not that a lot of the world was all that worth saving, mind you, but the bits that were, they kind of made up for the rest. ... A couple of curious fantails danced in the air about me as I walked. I chatted back to them, doing my best impression of a cork rubbed against the neck of a bottle. Some would see visitation from a fantail as a bad omen, but from memory it's just when a fantail flies into your house. Then it's come to say something, and it's usually never good news. Someone's going to die before the night is done. Out in the bush, they're just saying hello. The soggy trail broke out into a picturesque glade. Giggling glade, currently empty of lip-locked lovers. I had no idea if I'd be able to draw anything out of that place, but I had to try. If something had happened there, something tragic, something terrifying, something that could have left an imprint, I needed to see it. Whoa, zoom in. I positioned myself in the center of the glade, closed my eyes, reached out with my mind, and braced myself to bear witness, as I'd been taught. Bear witness. Why is that in quotes? I guess because I'm not literally bearing witness. There was Maggie Matthews, hands balled into fists, tears running down her cheeks, glowering at Weka's back as he disappeared down the path. I saw her muster herself, dark thoughts swirling about her like opium smoke, and draw one of her father's chisels from the folds of her dress. Chisel brandished, she started after Weka, her first step trembling, the second stronger, the third? She didn't get to make the third. A shadow burst from the forest and took Maggie mid-step, a blur of predation and monstrosity, a color. Maggie Matthews was gone before she could even scream. I opened my eyes, took some deep breaths, and waited until my heart slowed from a gallop to a canter. Then I sent off into the bush, starting at the point where Maggie and the color had breached the tree line. The color had left nothing to betray its path, no physical sign that any tracker, no matter how skilled, could have followed. So I closed my eyes, committed my mind to empty darkness, and listened to the dying echoes of Maggie's terror and pain. I followed that sorry trail all day until the sun lurked low over the damp hills. The shadows were long and the day nearly done when I saw the first physical sign that I was in colored territory. A miner's boot, half submerged in mud, rotted leaves disturbed by a body dragged, a severed finger still bearing its wedding ring. I drew my guns and crept through the bush, taking each step with silent, painstaking care. As I moved, I scanned my surroundings, searching for the barest movement of fern leaf or frond, a flash of color that didn't belong, a whisper of air displaced, anything that might signal imminent attack. The forest remained as quiet and somber as a crypt. The birds had long since fled. At last I saw a break in the trees ahead, a clearing filled with wan evening sunlight. I paused to wipe the nervous sweat from the handles of my pistols, blew softly my palms to dry them. If I dropped one of my guns, it'd be the last mistake I'd ever make. Well, you have two. Then I pressed on, sneaking, watching, until at last I reached the edge of the clearing. There, I hunkered down behind a decaying pile of punga, and took in the scene of serene, subnatural horror before me. That's pretty, shocking. Maggie Matthews had the complexion of a Stilton cheese, chalky white and pale, exsanguinated. It means without blood, but how to pronounce it? Exsanguinated. Blue. Rigor mortis had petrified the scream upon her face, and her eyes were boiled eggs left to grow cold and forgotten in their cups. Crunch! Yet she moved. Aha! Pretty creature. A slow, methodical jerk as the color's mandibles chewed through her torso. Pew 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 pew! Slowly and surely, I drew a bead on one of the color's glistening compound eyes. A .45 caliber slug of pure gold shot through the eye and into the brain. A one-shot kill. At least that's how it played out in my imagination just before I pulled the trigger. And the color had other intentions. Whether it heard the outtake of my breath or the slightest creak from the trigger mechanism, the thing somehow knew my bullet was coming for it. It thrashed its head downwards, meeting the slug with the heavy chitin that adorned its monstrous skull. Is it chitin? Exoskeleton and pitch black blood showered the trees beyond, but the injury did nothing to slow the color down. Woo! Loud. Both guns blazing, I drove clear as the color's cruelly serrated arms plunged into the punga and tore it apart. My punga! I rolled to my feet as it came about, and I barely managed to put some solid Rimu? But these are made-up words, no they're not really, between myself and the color before those chitinous scythes came lashing out once more. Oh no, you didn't do a good job. In this case, barely. It turned out to be not quite enough. One of the brute's arms found nothing but air. The tip of the other raked the coat, shirt, and flesh of my right side before burying itself into the tree trunk. Is it stuck? It didn't move. While the color thrashed and hissed, trying to wrench its arm free, I gritted my teeth against the searing pain in my side, raised my Colts, and put 2 remaining slugs through the monster's eyes. How, you should probably save one or something. Like the lovers of Giggling Glade, those bullets kissed in seclusion and then went their separate ways. The color's skull, already weakened by my maiden shot, disintegrated. You only had 3 shots? There were a bunch in the middle, weren't there? I guess they all missed? Its massive body thrashed for a few moments in decapitated confusion, and then slumped simply to the sodden earth. Limply to the sodden earth. My moment of victory was a short one, as my bleeding flesh reminded me of the cost. There's no shame in crying, and I did just that as I took the bottle of Farland's remedy from my coat pocket, unstoppered it with trembling hands, and downed its contents. Like most of the Falconer alchemist's brews, it simmered with welcome warmth on the way down, and burned like a bitch as it got to work. Whoa, I'm seeing red. I eased myself to the ground, put my back against a tree, and tried not to scream at the agony of Farland's remedy, knitting my insides back together. After what seemed like an hour, but was probably only a few minutes, the pain subsided to the point where I could once again think and see with some clarity. As the remedy finished its work, I took in the clearing and its macabre inventory. It looked like most of Moonlight's disappearances would end up being explained by this one blood-soaked dell of shattered bone, tattered cloth, and shredded flesh. It was impossible to tell exactly how many people had shared Maggie's fate, but a quick skull count told me a dozen at least. And just when I'd finished counting, that's when I saw the eggs. I struggled to my feet and crossed the clearing, stepping as best I could around the remains of the tragically departed. Oh, they're hatched. The first egg looked like it belonged to the color I'd just slain. How can you tell? A long, waxy cocoon, some 10 feet in length, ruptured from the inside out. Its twin lay nearby. Same length, same burst-open appearance. I'd brought one of these monsters down, but there was another out there, equally big, equally ferocious, and now wise to the fact that there was a Falconer on its trail. Are these things sentient? Then I saw the third cocoon, obscured by ferns on the edge of the clearing. Despite the cold, clammy air, the sweat beaded on my skin as I limped over to the thing and took in its grotesque beauty. It was smoother, more delicate than its cousins, like a baby's cot made of pure silk. The top had been neatly slit open and its contents disgorged, without the slightest disturbance to its smooth lines. And what sort of contents? Centipedes, 1,000 or more, a curling, wriggling mass of legs, mandibles, and glistening, supple chitin. 1,000 near-mindless creatures that, when joined, forged a single and fiendishly clever intelligence. A cedar. Gross. I looked from one cocoon to the next, and to the next. This wasn't a color problem. This was a bloody infestation. I felt the tears stinging my eyes once more. They weren't tears of pain this time. Farland's concoction had seen to that. No, they were tears of frustration, and something else. Fear. Tears of fear. Interesting. Tears for fears. Is this the end of the demo? Cool. That was interesting. I liked it. I'd definitely play more. I'm curious. It's a good mix of mystery and world building, which I think is what hooks me and makes me want to play more. That's pretty much all I have to say. No real criticisms. I liked it. Hopefully it gets greenlit. I will have a link in the description below to the page where you can download this demo for yourself, get some more information. That page has links to greenlight, etc. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you guys in whatever game I'm doing next. Signature catchphrase. Oh, well, brief asterisk addendum. Looks like the full version, at least at the time of this demo, was planned on being available like a month or so ago, a few months ago. So maybe it's already out in greenlit, or maybe actually, I guess the full version is available, but the greenlight is to get it on Steam. Whatever, we can do more research on the website. Bye for reals.